Sad day for the Giants as longtime clubhouse guy David Loewenstein passed away. He had advanced Crohn's disease. He was 32 years in the Giants clubhouse. Everyone called him Rolo. Everyone had a story about him, including two of the longest tenured Giants.
Everybody's got Rolo stories. Rolo was tremendous. He was awesome in the clubhouse. He came up with all these great jokes. He was just such a personality in the clubhouse, and we're gonna miss him a ton, and we're here for him and his family, and he'll definitely be deeply missed.
Just a beautiful person, and I'll never forget what he said in 2010. Yeah, we had a couple of rough games. We were about 7 games back in San Diego. He goes, it's all right. You know you're going to win the World Series this year. You know you're going to win it. And he was such a positive guy. And we've missed not having him around. He hasn't been around very much lately. But sad day. Everybody that had a chance to spend time with David certainly had fun with him. And he had some very close friends like Steve Klein, who they would be out in the clubhouse wrestling. He just helped keep the guys loose, and we miss having him around.
Yeah, David Loewenstein, called him Rolo, 60 years old, dead now. And you look at the baseball players and Bruce Bochy and say, what makes baseball run? It's the players and the Hall of Fame managers. That's what makes baseball this great game. But it really is. There's so many people behind the scenes that many fans will never even know about that make this game tick.
Absolutely. When I hear about it and I think of him, it brings a smile to my face, because he was such a part of that clubhouse and such a part of keeping the guys loose. And I mean, from spring training, where we'd have our meeting every morning and he would send us outside with a joke, or if it was somebody's birthday, he'd sing them happy birthday. To Steve Klein, him and Steve Klein, they were like inseparable, and Steve would put him in the laundry cart, and Rolo would be like a little kid yelling, if you're tickling him, no, 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 but he's laughing the whole time, and Kleiner would put him in there and wheel him around the whole clubhouse. He'll be sorely missed. He's been there for a long time, and he was Al Rosen's stepson, so he'd been there for a really long time. So thoughts and prayers go out to the family.
He always called me Turtle Man. He's hey, Turtle Man, because he said I looked like a turtle. Hey, Turtle Man, how about waving some guys in tonight? We can't win unless you wave some guys in, Turtle Man. How's your turtle family? I mean, he would just make you belly laugh, out of nowhere. But Barry Zito and the Giants got together, and they raised money for him, donated money because he had needed round-the-clock medical service. They voted him a full share in the World Series. That shows you what he meant to the team. 8 years ago, I just walked out of the coach's office in spring training, and I was watching him work after a long day of hot sun and early morning, and he's cleaning off every one of the shoes, and I just happened to have my little flip camera phone, and I put this up on YouTube 8 years ago, and Mark Gardner let me know today and just said, hey, we lost a true Giant. So let's watch it.
What are you doing?
What are you doing right now?
I'm doing the shoes right now.
Is there a picture? Is there a special way of doing it?
Yeah. I gotta put the Holy Cow on there, which is a scrubbing formula.
What's it called?
Holy Cow.
So what does that
First
do?
I wipe them. First I brush them with a wire brush on the bottoms for the cleats. Then I take the Holy Cow and I put it all over the shoes. And then I take a scrub brush like this. And I scrub it to get all the pine tar and all the stuff from the field off it.
How long have you been doing it?
I've been doing this for about 23 years.
I bet you're good at it.
Yeah, I'm okay, I guess.
And you do all of these behind it?
Yeah, I do all of them.
How many pair a day?
Right now I'm doing about 60 pair a day.
60 pair a day?
Yeah.
What would your tip be to somebody out there that wants to do this for a living?
I would say that they got to start at the bottom and maybe be a bat boy, and then you get to become a clubhouse guy if you're good enough as a bat boy and you're interested in it, and then you become, you can do the shoes or do some of the parts of the clubhouse.
And then you might be a Giant someday.
You might be a Giant, you might be somewhere else, you might be with another team.
All right.
You never know.
All right, buddy. Thanks a lot for sharing your life with us.
So we're gathered to remember David, to celebrate his life. In fact, to celebrate life itself. Something I've been wondering about, and I was talking to Bobby Evans before this, I was asking him, well, what brings you here? And I want to ask, and I've been asking myself, and I want to ask each of us, so what brings you here today? It's a beautiful day. We could, each of us, be doing a lot of other things, but we made intentional time to come here, to be here, to honor David, to remember him, and to be with each other. So I want to know, what does this time mean for you? Who is David for you? How has he touched your life? And we're going to be hearing from some really wonderful people that's been in David's life. Because, you know, this isn't going to be just about David, it's about all of us. You know, we live in a constellation, a web of relationships with each other. And right now, David is at our center. It's said we live two lives. One is in our body during the time we walk this earth. The other is in the stories and the memories we generate and that others tell about us after we're gone. I want to say something I learned about memory. Memory is a death-defying act. So as we gather today to recall and share stories and memories of David, let us defy a little bit of death and enter into some of that immortality, because that's one way that we do it. At the close, after we listen to a number of people, we'll have a moment to stand in tribute to David and to ask ourselves again, so who is David for us? How has he touched us? How are we different because he was here? As a chaplain, I have to say a little word from the scriptural references, or else I feel like I haven't done my job. So this comes from the Hebrew Bible, from the book of Ecclesiastes. But I want to put a little bit of a personal twist, because well, you'll see what I mean. For everything there's a season, a time for every experience under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted. A time to tear down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. And if that writer had lived nowadays and maybe in this place, he would have added a time to play and a time to refrain from playing, a time for balls and a time for strikes, a time to call and a time to be called, a time to hit and a time to sit, a time to walk and a time to run, a time to win and a time to lose, a time to get on base, and a time to return home. A time to grieve, and a time to dance. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to keep silence, and a time to speak. So let us speak of David, and we shall. We'll speak of honor. We'll speak of love and family and struggle. We'll speak of grit. We'll speak of friendship and generosity and kindness. We'll be inspired by making the best and by service. He circled his bases and returned home. So I want to say three little stories and then turn it over to Gail. I first met David. I'm a chaplain at Stanford Hospital. Before this, I was an emergency medicine physician. But you know, sometimes life throws you curveballs and you end up finding a different path, and I got called to become a chaplain. And I walked in one day and there was David, and I didn't know him, hadn't met him before. And it turned out it was the fall of 2010. And not only was he ill, but he was also lamenting because he wasn't home with his family. I always want to know, well, if you weren't here, where would you be? And he told me where he'd be, and it would have been here. It would have been here with, I imagine, all of you. And for him, he was in this illness, not only a stranger in his body, he was a stranger in a strange land, and he was anywhere but home. And, you know, the doctors were giving him all the right medicines, but his spirits were low. Because that's what happens, right? And then I came in one day, and his spirits were up. He had just got a call from Mike Murphy, and I don't remember the other players, but he got a call from several of the other players. Was right in the middle of the World Series, was right in between one of the games. And I just stopped to myself and I went, wow. I mean, this is the team that I've been rooting for. And I'm originally from Detroit, but I'm now a Giants fan. But I learned something about this team and about this organization and what it meant to be family. And I also learned something about medicine. When people take a little moment of time out of their busyness to call, to make a phone call and say, hey, David, what's happening? It conveys a message. It's a kind of medicine that does not come in the IVs. It's a medicine of love. It says, I am here with you. You're with us. We're all together. After David died, I had to stop by, and I needed to come by and see you, Rita. I just wanted to be with you because I know that you didn't have a chance to be there at the bedside. And I'll always, what's that? Yeah, Gail was there, and I'm going to mention that in a minute. And I'll always remember sitting with you. There were two important calendars at your where you were sitting on your chair on your stand. And one was the calendar for the residence where you're living, and all the different activities that you participate in, and you're keeping very careful track. And then there was one other very important calendar, and that's the Giants schedule. And that's the Giants schedule. And you told me how with every game you'd be on the phone with your son David. And I know. No, I don't know. I can only begin to know how much you miss him in those times. And I just want to acknowledge your mother's, the love you have as a mother for your son. And I got a call at 12:36 in the morning. When I come into the hospital, there was a man in the intensive care unit. His name was David. I said, oh. And he's in his last minutes. Could I come in? So of course. And I walked in, and there was Gail sitting next to him, and she'd been with him all day. She's been by his side, either in person or while away, throughout their life growing up. We had a lot of long conversation. There was one piece that I want to share with all of you that she found it important with him. A very simple conversation I think all of us could have with anyone that we dearly love in our life. And I suggested she might have this, and I said, talk to him. Tell him, if you haven't already said so, what I appreciate about you, why I'm grateful for you. 2, talk to him about any regrets you may have, what you wish, anything you want to forgive him for or yourself. 3, tell him how much you love him. And then 4, how you're going to carry him with you and how you might live your life and continue because of him. Those 4 things, and she did. And that made the world for her. But she made an ending for him that was beautiful. It's one that we can all take as a lesson. She was there with him all day, and one of the prayers, at least in my tradition, is we acknowledge that life isn't up to us. We're born into this game, and we're going to want to play it to the end. But when our time comes and it's not up to us, may it be in love. And there he was, surrounded by love. And what did she make possible for him that day when I walked in? He's in his bed, and there's this, I'm seeing the back of this big poster. And what's on the front side of the poster is a picture of Al, of Flip, at bat. And what else did she make possible for him that day? Pizza, a milkshake, making sure they watched the ball game, and a phone call to Mom. And then he drifted off, and now he's gone, at least in body. but not in spirit or story. So let's continue the stories, and let me call on Gail. Please continue for us.
Thank you, Bruce, and for being there. So, a guy walks into a bar. The bartender tells him, "Sorry, but you need to be wearing a tie." The guy turns around and comes back in with jumper cables around his neck. The bartender looks up and says, "Okay, but just don't start anything." David loved telling that joke. If you've heard that joke, raise your hand. Yeah, okay, thank you. He definitely told it better than I did. I'll never hear that opening line again without thinking of him. But it's the punchline that makes me think about David even more, because he loved starting things, making things happen, and he was great at it. The truth is, oh God, can I have the Kleenex, please? He was the most accomplished person I've ever known. I wish I had told him that, but I don't think I truly realized it until I was looking back on his life and getting ready to talk today. He was also the most stubborn, as just about anyone who knew him will agree. That I did tell him more than once. But it's exactly that stubbornness that helped him to accomplish so much and to beat the odds for as long as he did. When David was deprived of oxygen at birth, the doctor said he'd never walk. Little did they know that our mother has that same stubbornness. And with the help of her unparalleled love and support, he not only walked, he graduated high school, started and coached a bowling club, and participated in several Special Olympics. He also took cooking classes for years brought the turkey and mashed potatoes to our annual Thanksgiving dinner. When our mother and Flip came out here to join the Giants, David moved into his own apartment, learned to drive, bought a car, and started working in the clubhouse. It was the job of his dreams, and he was completely devoted to it for the rest of his life. Even when he was battling for his life and on disability, he came into work every day that he could. Bless you, Giants, for letting him do that. It brought joy and purpose to a life that had way too many challenges, especially the last few years. At some point after moving here, David started playing Santa Claus. We were born and raised in a Jewish family, so God only knows where he got the idea, but he was a pro. He had the red suit, the boots, the beard, the belt, and all. And during the holiday season, he carried everything in his car, along with a huge supply of candy canes. He'd get gigs without pay at hotels, shopping malls, hospitals, parties, wherever they'd have him. He'd pass out the candy and belt out ho-ho-hos and Christmas carols. After my daughter Emma was born, he'd come to our house on Christmas morning with a sack full of presents for her and the neighbor kids. During the early years, he had them totally fooled. It was the best part of the holidays. David also started a bowl-a-thon, an annual event that raised funds for the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation of America. David didn't just host the event. He planned every detail, bought all the raffle tickets and prizes, mostly Giants, bats, balls, and clothing, printed t-shirts for all the participants, all with his own money, arranged for pizza and soft drinks, and emceed with a microphone and an exuberance that was classic David. I know a lot of you here were at the bowls many years in a row, and I thank you so much for coming today and for coming all those years. David was honored in 1999 as a champion of hope for the CCFA, and I'll never forget Flip's tears of pride when he introduced David that night. He was honored among a group of distinguished physicians and research scientists, and then there was David. There was nobody like David. Even recently in his retirement community, David started presenting movies and DVD concerts to his fellow residents. But a new tradition took its place when Flip passed away and our mother moved up to the Bay Area. David would bring a couple of DVDs and lunch and they'd sit and spend the afternoon watching classic films, unless, of course, there was a game on. Then they would watch every single pitch. On the days they weren't together, as soon as the game was over, they'd talk on the phone. And I know that's when you miss him most, because you've told me that many times. David not only loved the game, he collected all things baseball. T-shirts, jackets, cards, balls, bats, and anything Giants, especially bobbleheads. His collection numbers over 300. And he would be happy to know that we'll be donating them and most of his Giants memorabilia to the Junior Giants and the Giants Archive. And I think they're going to have a display case with some of his stuff at the ballpark next year. David's love of baseball came after his love for his family. Our mother, our father Alfred and his wife Helga, his siblings Rob, Andy, Jim, and me, his sisters-in-law Linda and Anna, and his nieces and nephews, Lauren, Stephen, Zach, and Emma. But he had a special respect, admiration, and love for Flip, his true hero. Flip encouraged and nurtured David's independence, treated him, both of us actually, with the love, generosity, and kindness of a true parent. And of course, most importantly, he introduced David to baseball and to his second family, the San Francisco Giants. I didn't realize the depth and strength of David's ties with the team and their ties with him until the tributes on the day he died and the incredible outpouring of love from present and former players, coaches, and front office folks, including Murph, Larry Baer, Bobby Evans, Dusty Baker, Bob and Connie Lurie, and oh my God, Willie Mays, and oh so many more, including Nicole Bevetto, who orchestrated this wonderful celebration today. David had a third family as well that many of you here have not met. It's made up of the caretakers, social workers, and physicians who supported him, healed him, and sustained him over the past several years. These incredibly skilled, dedicated, and abundantly kind individuals enabled him to come out to the ballpark, care for his beloved dogs, go out to lunch, make trips to Reno and Palm Springs, and continue to live on his own. My family and I want to express our deepest gratitude to you all, especially to Dr. Frank Fazzolari, who's here today, who never stopped believing in David's strength or advocating for his health and independence. And to San Andreas Regional Center, the amazing organization that provided David with the care teams and social workers who watched over him every single day for the last 7 years. And finally, to Compass Supported Living Services, whose wonderful caregivers, so many of you are here, who did everything for David, shop for food, drive to doctor's appointments, walk the dogs, manage the medications, and bring him to the ballpark. Before I introduce somebody from that third family, on behalf of my parents and the rest of our family, including Rob and Jim Rosen, who are here today, I want to thank all of you who have joined us to celebrate David's life. David would have loved this. And I truly believe he is up there somewhere right now with Flip, our grandfather, Papa, and our brother Bobby, eating pizza, drinking a milkshake, and enjoying every second. And now, Laura, are you here? Laura, I'd like to introduce Laura Sanchez from Compass, who's going to be sharing a story about how David touched the lives of his caregivers. Thank you all for coming.
everyone. I was David's case facilitator for the last few months of this year before he passed away, but he got really close to our regional manager, who during a time of big transition, she was able to be a source of strength for him and someone he could really connect to. Gail right now is trying to help me find an article that she wrote on behalf of him so that we can share it with the rest of our Compass agency and anybody else who reads our newsletter. Do you have it by any chance? Well, I could share a few words about David. I started working with him in February of this year. First thoughts, of course, were, what am I gonna do? Because I had heard about David being stubborn, liking things his own way, and, questioning people and making sure that they knew his medication, that they knew his routine, and that they knew that every time there was a baseball game, he was gonna try and make it. So, first time meeting him, I just only met him for a few hours. Sure enough, it was a big interview. What do you know about the Giants? Have you ever been to a game? Who's your favorite player? And I was like, honestly, I'm not a big baseball fan, but I will learn it for you, David, if that's what it needs to come to. During the last few months, when he was rather ill, he probably called me more than twice every day. If he couldn't reach me, he would call our emergency pager and tell them that he needed to talk to me right away. He was just so grateful for all of his caregivers, and I see a lot of you guys here today. And I just want to say from the bottom of all of our hearts at Compass, he truly appreciated each and every one of you. He always loved when you were all on shift. He knew he would have a great time. He just had so much fun with you all that he didn't view any of you as caregivers. You guys were all his friends and his family. So here's the article that our regional manager wrote on behalf of David. I have thoroughly enjoyed my time supporting the team in the South Bay, and I am honored to contribute to the newsletter as a transition into a different role at Compass. I want to share a story that demonstrates the sheer beauty and awesomeness of supported living, and while there are many to choose from, one story in particular has moved me. David Loewenstein is full of life. He is strong, spunky, intelligent, direct, and quite stubborn. These qualities have enabled David to overcome obstacle after obstacle in his life. And I am hoping and praying that these traits will continue to carry him as he is currently facing significant medical challenges. The first time I met David, he was actually not very happy. And even though he couldn't wait to report to me his concerns, he invited me into his home and extended his hospitality first. We exchanged several minutes of social pleasantries, getting to know each other a little bit. Then he let me have it. Through his delivery, may not have been the most tactful, his arguments and concerns were valid, well thought out, and made perfect sense. We connected that day. Even though it was difficult and he was angry, David valued the concept of connection. He was genuine, straightforward, and courageous. David is fiercely independent, and he has only been receiving services for about 3 to 4 years when he became qualified through the regional center and became connected with Compass. David was deprived of oxygen at birth, and his family was informed that he would never walk. At 2.5 years old, he began his lifelong trend of defying the odds and proving everybody wrong. By walking, though, they said he would never be able to. David has always been social and motivated to connect with others. He was an avid bowler, coached basketball, and joined many groups as he could. Most incredible is his 31-year career working for the San Francisco Giants baseball organization. David's stepfather helped him get the job, but David's desire, work ethic, excuse me, and charisma secured him not only a career, but a permanent home in Giants organizational heart. Before Compass started serving David, he lived and worked on his own and was driving himself wherever he needed to go. Aging challenges out of all of us and David has needed more in recent years. David lived in a retirement community where he had many friends and had many organized social events, including movie nights. David is quite generous and enjoyed sharing life with others. Many years ago, David organized a bowl-a-thon to raise money for others in need. David has a typical relationship with his sister Gail, in that they love each other without end, but could also say things to each other that no one else could. David's mother and father are 90 and 91 years old, and they continue to be in awe of what he has accomplished. Gail shared with me her admiration of David's ability to overcome challenges throughout his life, his social connectivity and generosity, and that he is one of the most intelligent people she knows. Gail has been a constant advocate, supporter, and necessary thorn in his side when needed throughout his life. It has been hard to see David's health needs become so complex, and she just wants David to live the life he wants and deserves. Gail was reminiscing about the good times with David, and she recalled fondly the many years David dressed up as Santa Claus, and how he loved bringing the kids presents and how it brought him joy. David began having medical issues in his late 20s, and he had 17 surgeries as a result of his Crohn's disease. Among other medical needs, David developed diabetes, which has taken a toll on his body, leading to the recent need of dialysis. David has cheated death multiple times in his life, and he continues to fight to live. Over the last few months, David has been in and out of hospitals, skilled nursing facilities, countless medical offices, and as I write this, he is fighting to return to his home and his dog Nolan, whom he adores. As proof of David's spunk, though he may not admit it, he recently chose not to settle for facility food meeting his dietary needs and instead called and had pizza delivered. David's resolve to return to his home inspires me and others who have witnessed his incredible strength and perseverance. He brought together an amazing group of professionals to support him, many of whom can't get over how amazing he is. I want to acknowledge some of the many people who have supported David in his journey. Thank you, Gail, Rocky, Sergio, Conrado, Jamie, Joseph, San Andreas Regional Center, the Humane Society Nolan, the Humane Society Wonderment, and the whole Compass team. I'm asking, though, for your thoughts and prayers for David's health, but also for his family and his team to have the courage to support him. David, thank you for letting me be a small part of your world and reminding me of the power of perseverance and the beauty of supported living.
Where'd he go? He disappeared. Hi, I'm Mike Murphy. This is Harvey Hodgeny. We had the thrill with David all through our lives here with the San Francisco Giants. When Al first took over with Giants, he called myself and Harvey in the office and said, I want to talk to you. My son David's going to be working with you in the clubhouse. And I said, oh my God.
We didn't see him until he came in. And when he came in, we said, oh, here we go.
Here we go.
He never had a dull moment after that.
No. We heard that joke many a times about the cables on and we had a lot of laughs. And some of the stories that happened that David was true in the clubhouse, like the one night we're sitting around talking with the ball players, and are you going to Willie Mays' house for the party? And he says, what party? I says, well, maybe Willie going to talk to you about it, but he didn't talk to me. So there was no party. We was just teasing him, and all of a sudden, he goes down there and brings the hot dogs and buns over to Willie's house, and he knocks on the door. What are you doing here? I'm here for the party. But it was just a joke that we didn't think he was going to take it seriously. But that's some of the things that David had here. And speaking of David, and we sure missed him. I got a lot of phone calls from a lot of ex-ball players and coaches and stuff like that. They said they really missed David. So we miss him around. If it wasn't for Brad helping us out too with David his last couple of years here, we really enjoyed it. So thank you.
One of the big ones was Bo Jackson came into the clubhouse one day. You know how David was. When those big guys come in, he wanted to see them. He comes up and he says to Bo, he says, is it true that Bo Jackson knows everything? And Bo just turned around and I said, sure, I know you look like Jerry Lewis. And I mean, the whole place. And he started hitting on me. He says, you told him to say that. I said, I never said that. But he loved his father. I remember one time in spring training. This is the old stadium. This is when we had the slanted roof. You had to duck in there like this. Al's in there making a protein drink. So David's going to go in and help him. All at once, I heard Al yell, get the hell out of here now! Get out! David comes out like this. I said, what happened? He said, he got the drink all over him. He says, he'll get over it, though. That was his favorite words. He'll get over it. He'll get over it. But we had a lot of good times with him. We're going to miss him. He was always good for a laugh.
That's right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us, Gail. Thank you.
Thank you, Murph and Harvey. I mean, nobody took better care of David than Murph, and I know he loved you, Murph, and you know all the guys in the clubhouse. I think it's very special for us, of all places, to share in the memory of David is the clubhouse. I mean, who could have thought of a better spot? And he was. You know, he was not just a Giants employee, he was our friend too, and for many years, as you know, every player and coach that's walked through that clubhouse door got to know David, and I think it's well said, you know, as you shared earlier, just how he cared about people, and I think these players knew that, and this is an environment where it can be hard and stressful, and David could help keep it a little looser. You know, as his time grew more and more infrequent, these last several years of his being particularly sick, you know, we just look forward to the time when he would come back. He loved baseball and made each of us feel that he also cared a lot about us, and I can tell that he showed that to his family most of all. As a father, I often think about, you know, what can we learn in a given situation, trying to help my son, whether it's a tough game or a tough loss or a tough class or a fight with his sister or what have you. I'm always looking for lessons in life, and I looked at David's life and I just thought about some of the lessons from David's life, and I thought maybe it'd be fun to share a couple of those with you today. And I think we've already heard, really the first one is, one of the lessons of David's life is never lose your sense of humor. You know, David was always willing to share a joke and a laugh or a story, and he was even willing to sing in front of the entire clubhouse if that would get the roar or the laughter that he desired. And many times that's one of the ways you keep a clubhouse loose is someone that's willing to share a joke or a story or even a song. Secondly, he was a guy who lived out his passion. I mean, as you've heard, he loved baseball, and you know, learned the love for baseball through his dad, Al Rosen. But ultimately, whatever it took, you know, for these last 31 years, he lived out his passion. And I think that's a lesson for all of us. Life's too short, and it's important to do something you love and with people that you love and enjoy. And David did that. one of the signs of his service for 30 years, at the 30th year of his serving the Giants, is represented in that home plate signed by the players in the back. That represented his 30 years of service here. Of course, this was year 31 this year, but that's there in the back for you to look at and enjoy. But again, I think it's important to remember, the lesson David, I think, teaches us is to live out our passion. And third, whatever you do, give it your best. And David, whether he's serving meals to the umpires, whether he's hanging uniforms or cleaning the spikes of shoes of players, he gave it his best effort. He always wanted to please Murph and the guys and never wanted to let them down. Again, always giving his best. Fourth, live with joy. We never saw David without a smile on his face, and he always brought a smile to us. You could always see that joy in the way he loved the game, the way he loved his Giants. And again, Murph was a big reason that he stayed connected for so long and brought us joy. But again, live with joy. I mean, a great lesson from David Loewenstein. And lastly, a lesson, again, there's many more lessons of David's life, but one that we heard again and again earlier is just to live life as an overcomer. Whatever challenges you face, they may not be all health related, but whatever those challenges are, be an overcomer, as David was an overcomer. When he battled, you heard, he was going to fight his way to get back to this ballpark, and it's that desire and that passion that came out in his life, and even the last night of his life watching the Giants, because again, he was an overcomer, and he had a passion, and he brought joy in the way he lived and the laughter he brought, and we're going to miss him. David, a forever Giant, a forever friend, and never forgotten, David Loewenstein. I'm sure there's many more lessons we can take from David in his life, but as we've heard a few funny stories and fun stories already, as David would want to have it, we're going to hear some more of those stories. So Joey Tolucci and Marco Aliotto, if you'd come up, and they both served as bat boys in this clubhouse for many years and knew David well. And they'll start it off, but we're opening it up for more stories as you feel led on the microphone. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Hi, everyone. I worked with David for 10 years in the clubhouse and also when he was in the umpires room. And when I was thinking about stories that come to mind from when basically I grew up here, started when I was 12, left when I was 21, that's when I was drinking with the players. No. When I was thinking about stories, about 90% of the funny stories I have in my mind of working here involved David. And one that came to mind, actually I wasn't even around for yet, but one of the stories was back in the day at Candlestick when the team was still playing there. It was a Monday Night Football game. And usually what happens is most of the Giants employees, all the Giants staff would have to leave because the 49ers had their people come in. But David decided to stay, and he was sticking around, saw the equipment truck, and he went up to the guy that was standing by it, and he said, hey, are you the equipment manager? And the guy goes, well, I could be if we lose tonight. It was Bill Parcells, who was the head coach of the New York Jets. I always thought that was really funny. But flash forward years later when I actually worked in here, one that really stuck out in my mind was prior to a day game, David come in and started talking about, bragging really, about how great he was at staring competitions. And everyone was like, okay, whatever. But he kept talking about it, And one of the old players, Mark Sweeney, challenged him. He's like, fine, I'll challenge you to staring competition right now. So that happened, and it lasted over an hour before a game. Usually when fans think that the players are getting ready and, getting mentally prepared to play baseball, this is what was going on. So there's video to prove it too. I have the DVD. And one of the funniest moments of it was he really actually was very good. I gotta give it to him because Sweeney was doing all types of things to get his eyes to wander or to lose the staring competition. And he was in a trance. Like, he did not move. He did not move once, and even if you fast forward through the whole DVD of it, he literally does not move. And I remember Omar Vizquel, who was a great artist, sketched a photo of him. I don't know where it is. I hope he had it. But it was a very beautiful photo. And anyway, they came towards the end, and he finally gave up. But I gotta say, he definitely won, even though Sweeney claims victory. But the funniest moment of the whole thing is he started out prior to the staring competition starting. He had a bowl of cereal that he always used to eat in his little cup, and it had milk in it. He just decided to start eating that again after the hour went by. Cereal soggy, an hour later. He didn't care. He's like, I was the winner. You know, I don't care what Sweeney says, I won. So those are my two funnier stories that I always think of David. And I mean, he always thought of me as like a big instigator. And I was young. I annoyed him. But as he always said, with all the players that kind of gave him the business, he really appreciated that. And I think that with all of us that have stories and knew him, we did it because we liked him, and he was a part of our family in the Giants Clubhouse, and I'm going to miss him. So thanks for letting me speak.
Well, Gail, you took my opening line.
Oh no!
So I'm gonna say another David joke. Does anybody know why in the middle of the night the man was running around his bed? He was catching up on his sleep. As everybody knows, David really looked up to his father, Al. And so he would constantly tell everybody that, my father was an MVP. My father was an MVP. My father was an MVP. So finally, somebody had told me that Willie threw out Al Rosen after he made the catch. And so I told David, and the next time he told me that he was the MVP, David, is it true that Willie threw out Willie threw out Al after he made the catch? And he gave that big David smile. Well, yeah, he did, but my father's still the MVP. I realized in 2010 when I started working here that working in the clubhouse, you're joining a family, and I think we all felt the same way when we found the hard news that David had passed away. So it's, I think he said it great at the beginning. This is also for us, and it's been great. I think David would be very pleased to see all of us here, all of us together, seeing each other again. It would mean a lot to him. So thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you.
Who else? We have time for a couple more stories. Yeah, come on up.
I'm Ed Montague, retired umpire. I think one of David's first jobs was in our room. And for years, he would come in there, and when I think of David, I mean, it brings a smile to your face. And he liked you to needle him, and if you didn't, he thought something was wrong. And was a great clubhouse guy, and would do anything you'd ask. One year, I had a green Chevy van. It was like a camper van. It was big, and used to tote the kids around for soccer and stuff like that. So it was the end of the season, and I asked David, I said, David, do you think you can get me a couple of giveaway items, for the off season, Halloween and stuff like that? And sure. Went out and I worked the ball game. I came back, and I had my older son Eddie with me, and we went out to the van, and there was no room for Eddie to sit. As the whole van was full from the front to the back. And David aimed to please. And for years, and the 1 year down in spring training, and this is Murph setting me up for this, because Murph used to sit there and needle me on the edge of the clubhouse in Scottsdale. hey, Montague, you bum, and stuff like that. So as he was out there, David's sitting next to him, and David thought that was funny. And I tossed David from the game. And I stopped the game. I wouldn't start the game till David left. So David went into the clubhouse, and he was really upset. And he met, and Murph kept it going. And David, for the next week, kept coming up and asking me, he says, what's going to happen? What's the league going to do? And I said, well, you'll probably get a fine. And I think they weren't real happy with you, and the suspension's in order, and I don't think you're going to be able to make opening day. And we kept this going on for quite a while. Murph. But David was, you know what, if the whole world had Davids in it, it'd be like Louis Armstrong said, it'd be a wonderful life. And, you know, I loved him, the umpires loved him. God bless you, David.
I'm Brandon Evans. I work in the clubhouse. I've worked with David for about 22 years. And yeah, I got a couple of stories. First of all, and there's a sequel to that story. So during the season, our player rep at the time, I won't name him, found some MLB letterhead and made a printout, well written, of the league fine and suspension. And we held a team meeting to read that to him. And you know, needless to say, you know, it was a joke that it run its course at that point in time, and at the time, he didn't take it well until everybody else revealed that it was all a joke, and that was at the very end of that meeting. But just want to let you know, yeah, that joke carried on for a while. And then I just got a story to tell about, you know, how thoughtful a person he was, and I think everybody in this room knows that. He, one day in spring training, he had, you know, Murph usually bought us lunch before the teams played, before the game started. And this particular day, David decided he was going to buy everybody lunch. So he goes to Whataburger, and he buys, I'd say, about a dozen burgers. And, you know, he buys one for myself, Murph, Ron, Harvey, the security guy, parking lot attendant. So he's passing out all these burgers. And then we all proceed to start eating, and he opens the bag and realizes there's not one for himself. And he's like, oh, I ran out of burgers. So he jumps in the car and goes to drive and actually goes and buys his own burger, and it was just like, it was just, you know, a pure David moment. But, you know, I know we have all these jokes and everything like that, but to us in here, you know, we knew him as Rollo. And everybody called him Rollo. That was the famous nickname. For me, I personally rarely called him Rollo. And it was because, to me, it was a seniority thing to me. It was a rank. It was, he still was my senior, not only in the workplace, but in life. And, you know, it was a sign of respect. I always referred to him as David. I called Rollo when referring him to other people, because if I said David, they didn't know who I was talking about. But when addressing him, I always referred to him as David. And one thing for sure, there were a ton of jokes that we played, a ton of pranks, and he played them too. And, you know, one thing I'll say for sure is that, you know, at the end of the day, I always made it a point to, when the joke ran its course, to let him know, hey, we're just joking with you, because he was family, and this was his home. As he got in his latter days where he started coming less, he would vent to me about that, and he would sit there and remind me, you know, how much he loved it here, how much this was his home. And so he always enjoyed coming out here, and, you know, we enjoyed seeing him. And he was our family, and he'll always be our family. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm gonna try to get it together. Snake goes in the bar. One another David's jokes. Asks the bartender, "Can you serve me a beer?" And bartender tells him no. And he goes, "Why not?" And he goes, "Because you can't handle it." And Snake. Anyways, that was, I heard that joke probably 100 times, 100 plus. I had a lot of good, great moments with David. Just want to say, working with him, showed me a lot, showed me how to love, showed me how to be patient. You know, to work with David, you had to be very patient. You know, my job would call me and say, you know, "Joseph, do you need a day off?" And I'd be like, "No, why?" You know, they're like, "Well, you're working with David," you know? I said, you know, I go, we created a bond. Worked with them for 2 years, and got to learn a lot about him. You know, he was going through a lot. I got to see a lot of sides of him. You know, his family, the Giants family, his family from Florida too. You know, I talked to all of them. I was kind of in the middle of everything. You know, I was getting pulled every way. You know, hey, this, you know. So me and David kind of created our own little family and bond together. And, you know, I know he loved the Giants a lot. That's where he wanted to be, you know. And I'm glad you guys put this together for him. The family, Gail. I'm going to miss him a lot. I stopped working with David about 5 months ago. I moved to Arizona, and you know, when I got the call, it was real hard on me. So, you know, came back to show my love and condolences to the family. And I mean, I'm trying to think of a story, but there's so many, you know, so many with David. The Willie Mays one, I was gonna say that one, but they said it, you know, he's like telling me, you know, how they did that, and I was like, wow, well, at least you got to go to Willie Mays' house, you know. So, man, there's so many, you know, I got to go with them to your house out in, where was,
Palm Springs, you know, that was great. When we hit the Reno, you know, I was supposed to be with them all night, you know, I was getting tired and he was still playing. Dave, I'm gonna go to the room, man. Oh, go ahead, you know. Then sure enough, in the morning, he's calling me, hey, you know, let's get it going. I'm already ready to go back to casinos, huh? So, I mean, we had a lot of great times. Just truly gonna miss him. You know, we went through a lot together, ups and downs, both of us, you know. He was like a brother to me, you know. So, I just want to tell you guys all thank you for the invitation, and I love you guys all.
Hi, I'm Rob. I'm David's brother. Okay, Billy, do you want to come up? I guess so. Come on. Yeah. He was Hall of Famer too. I mean, an MVP as well, just that everyone knows.
Keep going.
Huh?
Keep going.
Yeah, put the thing up there like that.
And here, microphone's right
Huh? Oh, I see it now. Yeah. Good corner there.
there. Yeah, there you go.
This here?
Yeah.
Oh, boy. First of all, I don't do this kind of stuff. I'm just about in the ground myself, so I try and stay above everything without him. When they called the other night and says, you want to say a couple words? No, I don't want to say nothing. I'm just going because of David. David was like my son. A lot of people do not know how smart this man was. He would come in and talk to me and tell me about my life. And I said, David, I'm older than you, but I'm here for you all the time. One day I got up in the morning very early to get to the ballpark. I didn't eat. And David come in and he says, where's your breakfast? I said, I don't eat breakfast too much, Dave. I come here to play ball. And he says, hold on. He goes outside and he brings back breakfast. He says, I'm your early ariser. Here's your breakfast. So I said to him, David, you going to do this every morning? I know he wasn't going to do it. I said, I was just talking. He said, I'm going to do it every morning. And every morning that I came in, I had to eat 2 breakfasts. Because anytime a kid like this think of me, and you know, you have to do something. You don't want to disappoint him. At least I didn't. And we got to know him pretty well. Now, I didn't know David was involved with Al Rosen. I had no idea who he was, you know. So one day he said to me, my dad's gonna shoot you. I said, for what? What did I do to your dad? Who's your dad? He said, Al Rosen. I said, oh my God, you were Cleveland? He said, yeah, you beat him and he's thinking about doing something to you. I said, David, I don't think that's good news, man. He says, you don't know my dad. My dad is strong. My dad can do this and do that. I said, oh my God, shit, I don't know what's going on. So David, when I moved to Palm Springs, I didn't move to Palm Springs, I had a house there. And I didn't know Al was across the street in Morningside. I had no idea where he was. One day I get a knock on my door, and that was David. He said, I came here to stay tonight. And he says, I said, how you get here? My dad is over in Morningside and got a lot of women there, and I don't want to stay there. And he says, I came over here to stay with you. I said, Dave, I don't need no help, man. I said, I got 3 rooms here, 3 bedrooms. Good, I'm going to stay in one of them. And he says, again, are you going to eat tonight? I guess so. You go, here's $100. You go to the store and buy whatever you think you need. Come on back. And I says, okay, fine. But anyone that doesn't know David, how smart he was, now he know that I like animals. He knew that. He knew all that. And he'd been looking around for an animal, and I didn't know it. One day he came in the ballpark and he says, I have a son for you. I said, I got one there. I don't need another one, man. Two of them. I said, you and Michael, my other son, you're too much for me. So he came one day and he says, I got a son for you. I named him Willie Mays Jr. I said, that's my name. I got him. I didn't know this was a dog that he had for me. He had a dog at home that he named Willie Mays Jr. I didn't know all this. You mean tell me that's my son? He said, yeah. Now you got 3. This kid was smart. This kid knew a lot about me, and I didn't know nothing about him. I get a knock on the door. No, I wasn't home. I was at the golf course one day, and I get a call from a lady that was taking care of the house, and she says, there's a gentleman here, want to get in. Want to get in. I said, don't let him in, because I was scared of, somebody might hurt the young lady. And she said, his name is David. I says, give me the last name. She gave me the last name. So he must have told her I'm tired. So I come home very early. I didn't even stay to finish the round. I came home very early. I get in the garage. I go in the house. That was David in the bed. In the bed. And I'm saying to David, what's the matter? My father would not talk to me because I won't stay over there, and I had to come here and sleep somewhere. And people always say, well, David's a little nervous there. He's not too cool. David was smart. He would tell you things that he wants, and then he'll go outside and come back, and he would ask you, do you have it? No, I don't have nothing you want right now. So when the lady said to me last night, you want to talk about David? No, I can't hardly talk about a kid like this. He was a smart kid. He was a kid that really think about what he can do for other people. One day I went to the hospital, and David says, what hospital are you in? And I said, Stanford. I'm next door. I'm next door, he says. Now, I didn't know that he had a room about a block away from there. I didn't know that. He said, I'm next door. I'll be over there in the morning. And I said, okay, fine. I figured he'd forget about the next day. I know that. Next morning, he knocked on my door, and that was David. I came to say hello, and I'm going to stay with you today, he says. And I said, my God, this kid, he's just smart all the way around. And what can you say about this kid that people do not know about? When David came in the ballpark and I was in the room, I could never talk. I could never say nothing to embarrass him because I always try to get him out of the way. And I said, David, you going home today? No, I'm gonna stay with you until, until you be okay. I said, fine, okay. Now in spring training, when I first went to Arizona, spring training, David was there. I go into the ballpark, and I go down into the clubhouse. And I said, David, where is the clubhouse bathroom? And he says, over there. Well, hell, if I know all that, I wouldn't be asking you, So he says, come in, I'll take you. And he says, it's over there. I said, David, show me where the bathroom is. Now I go in and I gotta go right quick. I'm waiting for David. I gotta go. Get out of here, man. He says, no, I'm going inside. That means I'm going inside with you so you can sit down. And I said, David, please, come, get out, please, will you? He was such a good kid. When he tell you something, he's gonna do it. You got the little towel there? Because I can't help from crying about this man. I don't do that too much. That's why I guess I don't like to talk about things when I know a kid, or a lady, a man, whoever's pretty good. I don't like to do it. But this kid was such a small, good kid to me. I don't know. Al Rosen called me one day when I was playing golf in Palm Springs, and he says, I want you to be back in, I was at Ballas in Lang City, and Al was my boss. And he says, you have to be back tonight, which is Sunday. And it rained Sunday, and I couldn't go back because there's a day to play golf on Monday. And he said, I'm sending someone over to stay with you so you can catch the plane early afternoon on Monday so you can be back Monday night. I said, okay. So I go in there early in the morning, and I'm asleep. Because I know I got to get up and can play golf. Then I got to go to get a plane that's going to the airport. That was another knock. And that was David. And I said, David, what are you doing here, man? I got to sleep. He says, I got a call from my dad. I'm sleeping with you tonight. He gets in the bed. I said, David, this is a true story. I know there's no way you can believe all this crap that I'm telling you. There's no way you can believe it, because I didn't believe it. I'm there. He gets in the bed and he says, I'm sleeping with you. I said, David. And then he grabbed my hand. I'll never forget. He grabbed my hand and he says, I said, David, let it go. I got to sleep, man. He said, no, you might slip out and go somewhere. I said, no, I'm not going anywhere. I'll be here. So now I hear him on the phone. Dad, I got him. And I said, you got me from where, man? I'm going back to work tomorrow. No, my dad said, stay with you until you get on the plane, and that's what I'm doing. And you talking about David is crazy, he didn't know what he was doing. You guys are crazy. David knew everything what's going on. Everything. And it was so funny when I hear these ball players talk about David and how he would do things he made everybody laugh. Everybody had a good time around David. Everybody seemed to understand, oh, David don't know what's going on. Yes, he did. He knew what everybody was eating. He knew everybody what they needed. And when you need something, he was right there. He was right there. So all I can say about David is that the family was such a good family. I didn't know the mother. I didn't know the sisters, but I knew Al. I knew Al, and when you knew a guy like Al, you knew that the family was very good. But David was such a good man, and I have to tell this because Murph didn't tell the whole story when David came to my house. I get a call, a knock on the door. Again, here's David. I get a knock, and he said, I'm coming to the party. And I said, I didn't want to say, there's no party here. I said, come on in. So he comes in, he says, and he had well, I got to go back to the car. I says, for what? He said, hold it. So he goes back to the car, and he brings with those donuts, the donuts. He brought 3 of those. He brought 4 packets of Winnies, and he put them in my arm. He said, I want to contribute to the party. I said, David, come on in. So we talked for about maybe an hour or 2. I said, David, you got to go home, man. I said, I got to sleep again. So now as he's going out the door, he turned around. I said, what do you want now? He said, I want my gifts. I want my hot dog and I want my Winnies. I got to take them home so I can eat. So Bud don't know all the details about what he did. He just heard about what David told him, you know. So all I can say about the family, you had a good man, a good kid, a kid that really loves what he was doing for his family. So thank you very much. Okay, that's it. Okay.
Before we close, please everyone stand. In just a moment, I'm going to, we'll excuse us to share some more stories, to have a little something to eat. But take a look at this man on the screen before you. Who is David now for you? How has he touched your life through your stories with him and what you've heard today? How is and can your life be better because of David? Is there someone you want to be or can be because of David? Is there something you can or will do because of him?